Hi guys, I'm Chris,
And I'm Mike.
and welcome back to No Limits, a mid-trap podcast. So how you doing this night, Mike?
I'm doing all right. Just had a lot of fun hanging out with our patrons.
Yes, we did.
We did a live Q&A session with them, and it was really great to hear some feedback and chat about rap. We could have kept going for longer than an hour, but it's always fun spending an hour talking about rap with some big fans out there. So that was great.
Yeah, it was nice to meet in somewhat person, Zoom person, Dawn and Sherry and Christina. They're three very passionate women who love Mitch rap and thriller books. They could actually do a little podcast themselves if they wanted to. Nice little book session.
Absolutely. And a shout out to Dawn. She came on with American Assassin playing on the TV behind her.
Yes.
And that was a fun way to kick things off for our little Patreon live Q&A event. That was a lot of fun.
It was. I had a lot of fun. Speaking of patrons, we have a couple new ones that we need to welcome. So we got over the past couple weeks. We've gotten a few. We have Dawn, who we just met, Roman S, James K, Matt P. So we want to thank you very much. We couldn't be able to do this without your support. So thank you.
Awesome.
So what are we covering today, Mike?
Well, we're getting close to the release of Total Power on September 15th. So we thought we'd do one last episode in our hashtag Road to Total Power series. And for this one, we are going to catch you up on all things Total Power. We promise to be spoiler-free as we discuss the book.
Yes.
And all the excitement and buzz, the social media, and what's happening on vinceflynn.com. And we're even going to get into the virtual book tour schedule that was recently released. Pretty exciting. Did you see all the stops, Chris, on Kyle Mills' virtual book tour?
Yes, I'm very excited for the one where Brad Thor is making a special guest appearance.
Yes. So we're going to talk about all those. Another little nugget about Total Power is that there's a 1-hour sample of George Guidall's audiobook. And so we're going to reflect on that because I really enjoyed getting to hear, our old friend, the voice of Mitch Rapp again. And we got a free 1-hour sample even before the release of the book. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and for anyone who hasn't gotten, an advanced reading copy, the first, I think,
4 chapters?
4 chapters are available on the website. So yeah, you can go check that out if you haven't got the ARC and read the beginning of the book.
Yes, and finally, we'll wrap up our Road to Total Power series diving into some of the research we found around the real-world vulnerabilities facing America's power grid. We were able to track down what we believe are some of the sources and reports that Kyle leaned into for the research on this book. And so we won't talk about the plot of the book, what happens, but we'll give you an overview of our best research on real-world threats and vulnerabilities to the power grid. So this scared me. And some of the research we looked up scared me even more about how real some of these issues are. So spoiler free, we'll get into some real world issues around the real electrical grid.
Yeah, it was really interesting, sort of doing, I guess, the research that Kyle would have done or similar to what he would have done in order to figure out how to make this book. I guess most books, there are always this touch of like reality to it, and so by doing your own research you really can see how, oh crap, this could actually happen, and we have all these vulnerabilities. So I'm glad that we decided to look into this when we found out we didn't even have the books, we didn't even have our own copy of the book yet, and we were like, we need to find this report and do some research into the power grid and stuff like that. So we're excited to talk about that today with you guys.
I read a lot of thrillers that are completely far-fetched, and as fun as they are, or as well written as they are, you just can't see the plot ever coming true. It's something that happens that's so out there. It's great for drama. It's great for fiction. But Kyle, these last couple of books, and actually even
the last two,
and even his older books, that I'm going back to now, he really, his brain is in the real world as he's playing out with some of these notions of what could go wrong. So good stuff to get into real world topics surrounding this book.
Yeah, I think throughout the series, it's been, obviously there's a mix of stretching the limits of reality, but for the most part, it's pretty grounded.
Sure.
And most things I feel like in the Mitrap series could really happen.
That's like our first interview we had on the show with Andrew. And for anybody who joined the podcast late, our first bonus episode about term limits, Vince Flynn's first book, the book is about political assassinations. And we were able to talk to a congressional staffer who worked on the Hill for Steve Scalise, the majority whip in the House, when he was attacked by a would-be assassin and a gunman, or wannabe assassin, I should say, and gunman on a softball field. And so we actually talked to somebody who experienced something similar to what happened in the books. And let's do it.
All right, so to kick it off, let's talk a little bit about the Total Power book tour. So our friend of the pod, David, and his team at Atria Books, they really have nailed this transition to being a virtual book tour, and there are a lot of exciting events around Total Power. So just to highlight a few that me and Mike are really interested in, there's one where he's meeting up with having a special guest of Brad Thor. Brad Thor just released Near Dark in June. They're both from Atria Books. We just talked to Kyle recently, and he mentioned potentially he would like to interact between Scott Harvath and Mitch Rapp. So it's cool to see these two people interacting, outside of their book worlds. We also have Jack Carr, Tim Flynn, Vince's brother, as well as Ryan Steck, who is, the founder of The Real Book Spy. So a lot of cool people are going to be coming in with these virtual book tour events. So go on the website, check it out, register, see which one appeals to you. Yeah, which one are you excited about, Mike?
The big one was Brad Thor. I was pumped to see that. And the event only says special guest appearance by Brad Thor. I don't think he's hosting the entire interview, but those are two brains, two writers I would love to see chit-chat back and forth about their craft and the adventures they put their characters on. And we hope one day we can get a little tidbit of a story of the two of them together, Mitch Rapp and Scott Harvath. So I'm excited for that. But, Tim Flynn is going to be a good one because as, all of the fans I've talked to have said, Kyle has done such a great job taking over the series. But I feel like having Tim talk to Kyle about these books, now that he's 6 books in, got the 3-book contract, will be at least 9 books in. Seeing one of Vince's brothers talk to Kyle about that really is just validation that everyone's behind him. He's 100% supported in where he's taken the character and the story. So, but we can let Twitter speak. Did I tell you I did a poll?
No, you do a poll often, so you don't.
I'm always doing this Twitter, and I leave you in the dust. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah. I don't do Twitter. I think you recently DM'd me because I retweeted one of your tweets, or retweeted one of Kyle's tweets, and you were
Who's
like,
this guy?
"Who is this?" I don't even think you knew that I had a Twitter. But yeah, I'm an Instagram guy. That's why I run the Instagram.
That's
so
true.
Follow us on Instagram, please.
Here's what I posted. I said, which giant are you most looking forward to seeing chat with Kyle Mills? Brad Thor, Jack Carr, Tim Flynn, or The Real Book Spy? We got 143 votes. Who do you think is in the lead? He has a big social media following. This author.
Jack Carr.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's really heavy on the social media.
Jack Carr on Twitter is lighting it up, and they released the cover of his 4th book. And 38% of people said Jack Carr. 34% said they're looking forward to seeing Brad Thor talk to Kyle. And 24% said Ryan Steck, The Real Book Spy himself.
Nice.
Yes. So, yeah, I'm pumped for that. We left somebody out, though. A Mitch Rapp ambassador, Brian Costello.
Fellow Mitch Rapp ambassador.
And a fellow podcaster. Brian is going to be hosting one of the events, and he has his own podcast. I checked it out. It's pretty awesome. The Comm Majors. He and a fellow buddy who are both communications majors. Every episode is
Nice.
them reviewing another movie, or sometimes they do books and pop culture, but predominantly movie reviews. So it's like a library of over 100 episodes. You can find him at B Costello Books, BCOSTELLO Books on Twitter. So check out the Com Majors podcast.
Cool. I have to check that out.
Well, here's their description so I can get it right. The podcast where the guys who should have worked harder in college chat about movies, books, games, and other stuff.
That's awesome.
If that was us, it would say drank too much beer in college.
Drank too much beer. Played too much Call of Duty.
I think I might have played more Halo back in those days.
Ate too much.
Calzones. No, Strombolis.
Strombolis,
man.
yeah.
Wings over Washington. Best wings, best Stromboli.
Oh yeah, way too much wings over Washington.
Opening a greasy
Anyways.
takeout joint or delivery pizza joint like half a mile from a college campus is just great business.
On the walk home from the houses
Exactly.
that have parties.
Genius.
Well, one time walking home from the rugby house, we pre-ordered some wings, and we normally get like the 50 wings for all of us, right? Or 60 wings, whatever it was. And we're in there, and the guy's like, "Yo, do you want an extra 60 wings? I'll give them to you. I'll give them to you for $15." And normally it's like, I don't know, 40, 45, maybe even $50 for like 60 wings. We had a lot of people, but he's like, "Yeah, someone ordered them, but they canceled on us. So I'll double your order for an extra $15." And we were like,
Duh.
"Yeah." That was the same night we all got written up because we were talking about drinking while we were eating the wings, and then they came in and searched our room and found like an empty vodka bottle that wasn't even from that night. It was bad. Anyways,
Empty vodka bottle and 120 chicken bones.
yeah, exactly.
But back to what's important.
Anyways.
Mitch Rapp. We are a
Yes.
Mitch Rapp podcast.
We are a Mitch Rapp podcast, not a college recollection podcast. So
Believe it or not.
yeah, so make sure you check out these events. They're going to be every day starting on September 14th through September 19th. And then there's going to be one more on the 25th at the Toledo Lucas County Public Library. So yeah, check them out. It's kind of cool to see these being hosted at public libraries.
Yeah, now that everything's virtual, I'm sure the numbers are higher as well, for local events. You can just get more eyes on the event, and hopefully, because Kyle deserves it and David deserves it, that leads to more pre-orders. So please definitely pre-order your book on one of the independent booksellers on the tour, or check out vinceflynn.com. Oh, speaking of pre-order.
Yes, I thought you were going to talk about this.
Did you check out the holiday cards?
I did.
Yeah, each time you pre-order a copy of Total Power with one of the independent booksellers on the tour, it will come with a unique Mitch Rapp holiday-themed greeting card. And there's, I think, maybe 8 different designs. You could see them on vinceflynn.com. They were pretty cool. They were pretty funny.
My favorite was the Rappy Holidays one. I really enjoyed that one. I just want to be able to buy 25 of these cards and ship them out to people, or decorate my Christmas tree with them. Like, that would be sick.
I'd be totally fine with this being my standard Christmas card this year. Like, all about Mitch Rapp. Absolutely. I'd slip in a Mitch Rapp Pod No Limits bookmark, in
There
each
you go.
one. Spread the word on the podcast. I don't know. You mentioned the Christmas tree. I like the one with the Christmas tree and different ornaments on it. And each of the ornaments are something that you will desperately need if the power goes out. A can of dried beans, battery operated radio, and of course,
The
Glock 19.
Yes.
That's a pretty nasty Christmas tree right there.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And it says "Happy Holidays" from Mitch Rapp and the gang.
I really like those. Those are a nice touch. But we also have some other cool news, right? On the same website, you can go and check out an hour-long sneak peek of the George Guidall read audiobook. So they got George Guidall,
The voice of Mitch.
the voice of Mitch, and in addition to that, they also posted the first 4 chapters. So
Yeah, I listened to George Guidall, and he's back. He is back. He even does a great job introducing new character in that opening scene. We don't want to say too much, but the writing of those scenes are great, and George reading them is even better. So we know Kyle has the 3-book contract. I know nothing about contracts in the publishing world, but if George can stick around and do as many as humanly possible, the readers are behind it and appreciate it. So check out that teaser, that 1 hour at vinceflynn.com, and then buy the whole audiobook when it comes out. I know can you pre-order audiobooks like that?
I think so.
If you can, I'll probably get on that, but that'll be my 3rd copy of Total Power. Actually, 4th. I got the ARC, the Amazon copy, because the minute it was released, I pre-ordered on Amazon. I got one with the greeting cards on the virtual tour, signed, I think from The Poison Pen. No, I did Once Upon a Crime, independent bookstore. And then if I pre-order the audiobook, that'll be 4.
Nice.
And this is why Rosie says I should give away some of these copies to our patrons, once a month, because that's what I do when a new book comes out.
You have way too many.
I'll probably buy the ebook at some point too.
But you're supporting the author. It's good.
That's true. Well, what do you think? Should we get to our last segment of today, our research that we did on the power grid, and how vulnerable are we?
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to talk to you about this.
After reading Total Power, there was definitely one organization I looked into that advocates for protecting our communications grid, our electrical grid, but also our communications grid. And I can't help but believe that some of what Kyle researched going into this book was definitely from the EMP task force. Did you get that sense?
Yeah, and definitely heavily influenced by, in reading a lot of the stuff, it's heavily draws upon the study and research of the Dr. Peter Pry, who is in charge of some of these regulatory commissions involved around EMPs. And so doing a deep dive into some of this stuff was really interesting and, really highlighted how weak our America is in terms of and vulnerable in these attacks. Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, and Dr. Pry is the executive director of this organization I mentioned. So just from their website to tell you about the Task Force on National and Homeland Security. On their website, it says the Task Force on National and Homeland Security is an official congressional advisory board recognized as such by the Ethics Committee under the name Task Force on National and Homeland Security, and is a Virginia-based 501c3 nonprofit organization under the name EMP Task Force. So this is a group that is advising Congress, our lawmakers, and the ones with the power of the purse, advising them on all issues relating primarily to an EMP attack, but they also have a lot of other research on how such an attack would impact critical civilian infrastructure, the power grid, communications grid, transportation networks, energy, banking, finance, food, water. So basically, this organization is dedicated to convincing and producing honest documentation of the effects of a attack of this nature on our power grid, and they very clearly lay out implications that are far-reaching into so many systems that 330 million Americans take for granted on a daily basis, right? Water pumping to our house, a food distribution networks and refrigeration, banking and finance, energy. This is not an isolated problem. If it were to happen, it would reach pretty much every aspect of American life.
Yeah. You go to their website and it reads, without electricity, life as we know it will end. It goes on to say, we use electricity for almost every aspect of modern life. In our current state of unpreparedness, it's not a question of if, but when the grid collapses. And yet, the interesting part about this, and you could probably say the same thing about pandemic readiness in October, November of 2019, it's all like, not Monday morning quarterback, but like the opposite of Monday morning, trying to be prepared for something that could happen or, probably will happen before it actually happens. a lot of things don't get done. Like look at the pandemic. People don't want to spend $50 billion to, study all these, to have vaccines ready. We could spend that on something else. But in reading this, and the same thing with a global pandemic, it's not a question of if, but a question of when, right? So if the U.S. grid were to collapse from, it could be anything. It could be, they mentioned there's 3 different things, right? You have like an EMP, you have some sort of physical attack, an explosion onto the site, or like trying to take down an actual electrical site, or you could have a software, like a cyber hack. And then also you could also have something that's caused by the climate, like a solar
flares,
solar fire that could generate an EMP like thing that could take this down. So we know that people are trying to actively attack us on the cybernet. And, Kyle even mentioned in our interview that a lot of these places are guarded with just like a barbed wire and a fence. Yep. If you could figure out a way to strategically take down a couple of these places, if it collapses, it goes on to stay on this website that there will be no food, water, sewage, gas, medical services, communications. If you do it right, you could take down it from a couple months, or a couple days to a couple months to a couple years. And I thought it was interesting how I don't know how often they update their website, but it states that along our Gulf Coast, we don't have a warning system for these, or even a missiles defense system to protect us against like an EMP attack. So I found that really interesting. And I also listened to a podcast, which it was a kind of old podcast, came out in 2016, but it was with, this Dr. Pry. And he was on a podcast with someone who does off the grid news. And one of the crazy things that I had sort of didn't realize about this was that these transformers, they're very specialized, and they're only made in Germany, like 2 places, like Germany and some other location. So, and also they weigh a lot. So you have to reinforce bridges in order to move them and get them to locations. There's only 3 railroad cars that can carry one of these transformers, like one of these big transformers that are highly specialized. There's only 3 railway cars. And then the places in Germany and the other factory, I forget where it is, they only keep a certain amount of these transformers on hand, and then most likely, if you take down enough of them, a bunch of them are going to be specialized. So they have to be made. They could take months to be made. And how do you coordinate all that when you don't have a cell phone? You can't call these people. We can't coordinate ordering it, let alone getting it here, let alone moving it once it gets here. That's just,
Yep.
So that was really stark to me when I heard that.
And I mean, that example of the Gulf Coast not having early warning detection, is really just if it were an EMP style attack through an actual launched missile. But you mentioned those 2 other methods as well. A cyber attack and attacking the utility companies, installing malware or something. That's a serious concern of the EMP task force. They list that as one of the top 3 ways that the grid could be attacked. And they say, there are cooling pumps at the 61 commercially operating nuclear power plants with 99 nuclear reactors in 30 states, and that was as of May 30th, 2017. Well, all of those are running on computers and software that is checking temperatures and automatically triggering, the cooling process at these reactors. And so what happens if someone were to take over or take control of that? I saw back in a real life example of that in Ukraine. If you remember with the Crimean annexation by Russia when they had moved in.
Yeah.
And that was in the midst of a wider civil war, a lot say, being urged on by Russian motivations. But I saw a video of some engineers of the Ukrainian power grid, and they were in the eastern side, which was largely infiltrated on the ground, but it was also heavily infiltrated through a cyber attack. And at this station, the engineers, and I forget what news outlet reported this, the engineers had their cell phones out taking pictures of the computer, and the computer was moving on its own. Somebody was clicking and turning on switches, cutting and redirecting power supply through the network. And it was all, it had subtitles, but these engineers were looking at the computer saying, we can't stop this. I'm watching them direct energy to overload certain power plants and transformers.
Wow.
I'm watching them turn off electricity to parts of our government that are critical, to certain municipalities. And they were just filming with their cell phones the computer. They were locked out of their own system. And so a cyber attack like that is noted by the EMP task force. And then you mentioned a kinetic attack, how some of our substations and actual transformers are unprotected. Well, Dr. Pry has publicly stated, and to Congress he has stated, only 9 of these nodes where certain parts of our grid are interconnected, right? If you isolate 9 of these nodes and target those for attacks, that can bring down the system nationwide. Because isolated, these attacks may be bad, but they're recoverable. However, Dr. Pry, in his presentations to Congress, has argued it just takes a coordinated attack on 9 substations and 9 nodes that interconnect different regional grids, and that would be enough. So a kinetic attack, and Kyle mentioned it. He said something he researched was how gunmen in California just shot up a substation.
Yeah.
Well, that the EMP task force reported on that. It was April 16th, 2013. The Pacific Gas and Electric Company, their Metcalf transmission substation in San Jose, California. Half a dozen gunmen armed with just AK-47s, like Kyle said, shot up the substation. And it was a well-executed, organized mission that they were well-trained for. And it took out power temporarily to Silicon Valley. And the attackers were never found. They were professional in leaving no DNA traces, fingerprints, and they wore masks, so cameras weren't really useful. And most of the experts, including this panel that advised Congress, thought that was a proof of concept. That was something that you do it now to one unguarded station, we'll get it up and running. But Dr. Pry's argued you coordinate that with 9 interconnected transformer substations, especially ones that have equipment, like you said, manufactured outside of the USA, or equipment that can't be manufactured because it's custom made for each of those substations. Dr. Pry said that would keep the entire grid down for a year, and if that happened, in their estimates that they officially advised Congress on,
right, this is scary.
90% of Americans will perish.
Yeah,
that's just staggering.
What was really interesting to me too was this idea of, he talked about on the podcast too, food, and how we actually only have on hand in America to feed everybody like a month's worth of food. And when you look at like the regional supply stations where these distributors that then feed into your local supermarket, they only like carry enough gasoline to run their backup generators for like 72 hours. So you have a blackout, then they can turn that back on and keep it going for 72 hours. But then after that, it's pretty much done. And the food immediately, food starts to spoil. Obviously not everything's going to spoil, but a lot of things are going to spoil. And, even if you live off the stuff that's not spoiled, we only actually have like a month's worth of food to feed everybody. So then it's going to be mass chaos. Like that was really scary. Like, because also this can also be tied into any sort of like pandemic. Like, let's say like the pandemic was worse than it was, or you go to like some sort of really bad situation from like the movie Contagion, right? It's the same sort of concept where we don't have enough food, and you don't have communication. Things start happening. Like that's also like your cell phone won't work, the landlines won't work. So all of this is like very doomsday scary. It's that whole little note that Kyle puts at the very beginning of the book, where he says like this book almost wrote itself because it's so true. Like this could easily happen.
You basically take one of these reports we're reading to Congress, you fictionalize it, you put some dialogue in with characters, and it's simply just these scenarios that have been well documented, well researched in the academic world, and have been presented to our lawmakers. Kyle just puts it into a fiction narrative, like brilliantly so, but the story's been told, and I hope the story doesn't come true the way his Lethal Agent, mostly it came true, parts of that. So something's got to get done. But on the positive note, and they've been criticized, right? And by the way, we should address, right, this EMP task force, I don't know if you found this, but seemed to be somewhat controversial.
Yeah.
We don't want to say Dr. Pry and the task force has been the only voice on the matter. There's quite a few dissenters who say they're alarmists. They just want a more authoritarian state, let's say, to act on this, and they just want to cause chaos, or they just want to waste money on this. And largely what they're arguing with is the assessment of an EMP attack. If it were an electromagnetic pulse attack through a bomb or through a nuclear bomb, and the EMP shock afterwards, which they may have a great point of, maybe the science still needs to be more advanced on the long-term effects of an EMP attack on the grid, and if it's likely. But what has to be likely is the cyber attack, right? That's so well documented that you can't argue that a cyber attack and all government systems.
One of the articles you sent me said that like they get cyber attacks, like 3 to 20 a day, and specifically like targeting our electrical stations. I think they said they get at least 2 attempts a day. Yeah.
And that's the other one. Like if you argue that the EMP stuff is all bogus and these people are making this up and trying to scare you.
It's the extreme case.
It's the extreme case, but attacking a substation, like any coordinated military team, they can hit those substations easily. Like that's not that far-fetched. What's stopping them from getting past a chain link fence and shooting up some infrastructure that's already outdated and unguarded in the middle of the woods? Like, to me, that has to be a real threat. There's no way you could say it's not.
Or even just blowing it up with like some sort of makeshift bomb.
Sure.
Not necessarily a nuclear bomb, but just an easier bomb, right? So
sure.
Yeah, you sent me an article too that apparently there's some sort of potential, like China is actively trying to attack us, like during the pandemic, that it's been something that China's been trying to cyber attack us for the electrical grid. They see that we are vulnerable right now. So, what did you read that article, right, Mark?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I'm a social studies teacher, so let's cite our sources. Everything else we said was directly from the EMP task force, which is an advisory board approved by the ethics committee of the U.S. Congress. But the one about China is plotting an EMP attack was an op-ed by Peter Pry on heavy.com. So more of a blog or, op-ed, take it for what it's worth kind of article. But yeah, I have no doubt there is reliable source material out there of planned threats. I'm sure we're always keeping tabs on potential threats and tracking things, and the CIA, the NSA, it is so close to home that they have to have some sort of planned response or understanding of real threats out there.
Well, and Pry worked for the CIA. He's worked for the CIA. He's worked for all up and down these government agencies that are directly, and he has the knowledge. And I would argue, you brought up the fact that people wave him and this commission off as alarmists. Yeah, scaremongers. Yeah. Those are the same people that said this stuff about a global pandemic in 2019 or 2018.
And wanted to cut funding for that.
For the pandemic preparedness fund, or whatever it was. So,
yeah.
I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, right? So,
yeah. And one other step that was taken, we found an executive order that was signed March 26th, 2019. So pretty recently, hopefully as an outcome of the documentation and these reports to Congress, the president did indeed sign an executive order. It's called On Coordinating National Resilience to Electromagnetic Pulses. It's a pretty long document. We're no legal experts. We're no experts on any of this stuff. We just happen to like fiction books by Mitch Rapp, so we're qualified to talk about it.
Definitely.
Or about Mitch Rapp. But it seems to at least set benchmarks. In 6 months, the Secretary of State will host these meetings or have these reports ready. And then it says later on, in so many months, the Secretary of Defense and the Department of Defense, I authorize to conduct research on these threats. And then they even direct the Interior to start building or doing assessment reports on critical infrastructure. So, not being a lawyer, understanding executive orders and the legal language, this is a pretty lengthy document which seems to at least put benchmarks for different executive branch agencies actually collecting data, collecting research, and putting action plans into practice. For what it's worth, I have no idea if that translates to actual protection of the grid, but it was good to see, as of March 2019, from the White House, an order to lead the departments in building a plan. Maybe it's not enough, but it's something.
Well, one of the easiest things, or one of the, things that I think should be done is just beefing up the security of these transformers and electrical nodes. Just, you don't have to have like a lot of security, but like we had more security to get on site at DuPont than an electrical, like this, some electrical station. And, what the hell is there at DuPont? I mean, I guess we wanted to keep people out from trying to steal our knowledge, but and chemicals, I guess there's chemicals that you could make drugs with, but anyways, I digress. Just beef it up a little bit more.
Yeah. More than a fence and a padlock, And just these 9 nodes, right? Like if Dr. Pry he's the expert. And by the way, in the book, it's kind of interesting. We don't want to give away too much, but there is an expert on the grid who plays a critical role in coordinating these attacks. Well, someone like this, Dr. Pry, if he's pointing out that these would be the 9 that get hit, I'm sure we can put enough resources and funding without any controversy or debate around it into just those 9. And so I hope that's happening.
Yeah, definitely. So that was fun. Or enlightening. I shouldn't say fun.
Enlightening.
That was enlightening.
Yeah. And after we do our episodes summarizing and reviewing Total Power, maybe we'll loop back to this and talk more specifically about which threats Kyle chose to work into the book and who the main villains were operating and coordinating this attack. But trust me, you're going to see a lot of overlap between this research and the source material we presented to you and what Kyle does in the plot of the book. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So what are we going to be doing next, Mike?
So the book comes out in about a week. And so instead of releasing a Monday episode on Total Power, that would be September 14th, we are going to release our episode 1 on Total Power, our summary of the book, on September 15th. That is the day the book comes out. So you might want to hold off listening to that episode for a few days until you get your copy and finishing it up. Our next episode, Tuesday, September 15th, will have spoilers. It's our part 1 summary of Total Power. Finally.
Right. And, if you haven't pre-ordered, which if you're listening to this, hopefully you have, but if you haven't pre-ordered, definitely try to check out some of those independent booksellers that are either on Kyle's virtual book tour or, any of your local independent booksellers. Let's try to help them out. If you buy one through the virtual tour, there's also that special Christmas greeting card, which are pretty sick to get. So get yours as soon as possible. And we just want to say thanks again to our patrons, including our special operators, Sherry F. And then our special agents, we have Matt, James, Roman, Dawn, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, and Jeff. Big shout out to you guys. We wouldn't be able to make this pod without you. So thanks to our special operator and special agents.
Well, even if you can't support us on Patreon, please just subscribe, rate, and review us using your favorite podcasting platform. You can find us online at mitchrappod.com or using the Twitter handle at mitchrappod. And Chris, you never let me do this before, but here's my chance. And as always, just let Mitch be Mitch. Here we are, Kings Mill Golf Resort, Williamsburg, Virginia. How you playing today, Chris?
Playing like shit, Martini.
Still better than I am.
I played really well on the front. Now we've had a few beers, so we're doing bad on the back. But we're going to pull it back together.
I did bad
And
on the
as
front.
always, just let Mitch be Mitch.
What are we on, 14? We're on 14. We got a foursome, and between the four of us, we've had 2 pars.
Yep.
And they were both Tom.
No, both Tom.
Same guy hit both pars, and we're 14 holes in. What's 14 times 4? 40 plus. This should be easy.
Yeah.
56.
Wow.
No, it's not.
I don't know.
Well, that's how many holes we played, and 2 pars. Although I did have money on whoever gets the first birdie, so that's still possible.
Got a couple holes to go.
Smith could still do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you pick somebody? You picked yourself.
Smith as well.
Oh, okay. So we got to hope Smith does it.
Yeah.
But Chris and I are teamed up here, and hasn't looked good so far.
We won 1. We conceded another, so.
Well, we won 2, and then we lost the next 2.
Yeah.
So we got 4 holes. 4 holes left? Well, including 14, that's 5. So our math before was wrong then.
Yeah.
Should be 13 times 4.
See, we're drunk.
We're sitting on hole 14. Is that? Oh, well, I don't know. But we got 2 6-packs of Michelob Ultra to finish off by 18 here. So thank you, sir. Let's get moving. Well, that's a wrap. 18 in the books. How you feeling?
I felt pretty good after 9. Feel pretty shitty after 18. Although I had fun.
Yeah. Papa the Bobo is going to appreciate this update. He's going to be all over it. So, I don't think I hit a par.
No one hit a par today.
Only Tom.
No one hit a bogey today. Pretty sad day of golf, actually.
Actually, we hit a couple bogeys.
Very hard golf.
I had 3 or 4
No one hit a
bogeys.
birdie today, sorry.
No one hit a birdie, that's true. Yeah, I've been playing pretty well, but it's at these crappy municipal courses. And then you come to a PGA championship course, and hey, it's a bit of a different animal, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I would.
Yeah. Bud Light doesn't help. Well, it did help for a little bit. It helped the first 3 or 4.
The first 3, and then we progressively got worse. So.
The 4, 5, and 6 didn't help too much. I tried to be serious there for a little while, but it only lasted a hole or 2.
I'm just counting my front 9. That's all that matters.
You count the front 9. You play well on the front 9. You were consistent. Yo, real question, though. Do you think we'll get a live podcast in? What are you doing tomorrow morning?
We can probably do it tomorrow morning, maybe.
When are you guys leaving?
Okay, I wanted to leave by like 9, so maybe not.
Oh, shit. You think I could take this back to my hotel room?
Probably.
I don't want to walk with my clubs.
Yeah,
where's your car?
Yeah, I gotta go pee.
Where are you?
Right over here.
No, really, what time are you guys leaving tomorrow?
I think we wanted to be on the road by 10.
Because I got some
probably
notes
not.
for, and I brought my copy of Total Power.
Yeah, I did too. I don't know. Let's just,
You want to?
No, let's just hang out.
Yeah, because then it'd be like us in a room somewhere.
Exactly. We'll get it in a live episode.
We'll get one when you move down. When you move down.
Yeah.
This counts. These 2 minutes of drunken stumbling.
Put that in.
That counts. We can put that in. Papa the Bobo would like it. Do you think he's Papa the Bobo or the Bobo?
About like Babu Frick or...
Like Babu Frick. This is Force Awakens over here? Oh, no, wait. Rise of the Jedi? Return?